About fell out of her chair when I said that.
Well, that's pretty smooth. Which of the engines, right or left, is an overhead cam engine?
It'd be the left.
Right or left?
Right.
How can you tell?
He was just playing the devil's advocate.
He does that a lot. How can you tell?
Because
Where's the camshaft? What else? You know, what is that long skinny thing that's riding on the cam lobe, went all the way up? Push rod, right? Okay, you got a push rod, and the push rod is going to what? What does it make a connection to? Huh?
the rocker
Rocker arm, and the rocker arm does what?
opens the valve.
Opens the valve.
Would
Okay.
either one of these be better than the other?
Well, it depends on your perspective, really. What do you guys think? Somebody that's really knowledgeable about engines.
I like overhead cam.
Overhead cam. Okay, I'm not disputing that. I'm not saying that you're wrong. But why do you like overhead cam?
Because it's better boosted.
Better what?
You can boost it better than you can.
Oh well. That's from a racing perspective. But what if you just what can you tell me is going to make an overhead cam better, just overall? I mean, give me something stronger than that. You know what I mean?
I don't know. That's overall.
This is a special tool, by the way, for timing that balance shaft assembly over there. That's like $40.
I would imagine with overhead cams, rather than just a single cam in the block, I would imagine that you could tune your vehicle a lot more specifically for certain applications.
You can.
Well, you can, but basically what you got there, how many moving parts do you have, and how many different parts do you have when the camshaft's in the block?
That's true. You got
Yes.
What do you have? You've got
you got more push rod.
what is riding against the egg lobe on the egg-shaped lobe on the camshaft in one that is not overhead cam? What's stupid about that? At the parts house, they'll call the one that's not overhead cam, they'll call it overhead valve. Well, all the valves are overhead. This is a bridge and straddle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or a flathead of some kind. But the point is, so what you got here is you've got, or some of them will call it, what Ford would call it was the push rod engine. That's how they would call that. But if you call it somewhere like Advanced Auto Parts, they're going to say overhead valve, overhead cam. You know, but basically, if you just did it right, it's overhead cam. Okay, so what's riding on the Chelsea? What's riding on the camshaft? What's my camshaft making direct contact with on one that's got push rods? Nope, it's the lifters. Remember the lifter? It's got that little lifter, the little hydraulic lash adjuster. This actually is made so that it's constantly got a zero lash condition on the valve. Then you got a push rod. Some of the push rods are hollow and some of them are solid. The correct procedure for rebuilding an engine, like if you're taking an engine apart and you're putting it back together with new parts and all that, and you've checked all the tolerances and everything, you're supposed to replace the push rods if they're hollow. Did you know why?
And they break.
Stress fractures.
What did you just say?
Doesn't corrode like oil and all that trash.
Listen to that girl. She's giving you a good answer. All of that stuff that's inside that hollow rod, you can't clean it out. Now, how many people actually replace the push rods?
Why are they hollow?
Almost nobody. But in the book it says that's what you're supposed to do.
Why are they hollow?
They're hollow because oil goes through them.
Oh.
Oil goes through them, and it actually, you might notice on those rocker arms, they got this little dome-shaped area that the push rod rides in, and there's a hole there. And so as those lifters are operating, they're pumping oil up through those hollow push rods, and that oil is the rocker. The rocker's got a fulcrum it rides in and all that. Now, you'll see on a lot of them things, sometimes, and this has always been sort of unpredictable, when you pull the rocker arm covers off, even if you've got the ones that have got the top cut out, like if you're setting the valves on a Chevy, occasionally, everything will get just right and oil will come out of like a water pistol and just get all over your uniform or whatever.
And that's pretty cool how you set the valves on.
Oh, yeah. You know, after you've done it a time or two, you just think that it's really neat.
One time.
Yep.
Oh, you got to do
Yeah, we did it over here. And it's not too hard to do. That's one of the reasons I hang on to that old Chevrolet over there, because I can do all kinds of stuff with the valves on it. I mean, that old Chevrolet engine I got on the stand. Okay, now then, let me ask you this. As related to oil, the word viscosity refers to what?
Its ability to flow.
Both of you guys are right. Resistance to flow or the thickness of the oil, so you both got it right.
the thickness and the way it flows.
Like molasses in wintertime, you know, it's just real smooth if it's a... Okay, now let me ask you this. If I told you I had a 5W30 designation on my oil, what does that mean?
It weighs 5 in the winter and 30 during the summer.
When the oil viscosity varies from 5 to 30. In other words, when it's cold, it acts like 5 oil, and when it's 30, when it's hot, it acts like 30 oil. Now, and everybody in here remembers that W does not stand for weight.
That's for winter.
It stands for winter. Got it? W on oil does not stand for weight. It stands for winter. You could bumfuddle your folks with that.
You can do that to a lot of
I thought it
mechanics.
was weight myself.
Yeah.
That's what my dad's always said it was.
I know everybody's always said that hasn't actually studied it. But listen to this. Listen to this, Brandon. Go to your internet search engine at home, if you get in a spat with them about that, and type in and say, what does the W in 5W30 stand for? Nobody that knows anything is going to say weight. Got it? I mean, for eons we thought that. For eons. Yeah.
They're going to say it stands for weight.
Yeah. When I started working on cars, we were using round oil cans. You know the old round oil cans? I've got a can of Quaker State oil that's never been opened. It's still got oil in it. It's a round oil can.
That's old.
It's old and it's worth a lot of money if it's never been opened and it's a round oil can with oil still in it. You can get some cash for that. I don't know what it's worth. I can't remember. It seemed like somebody, and I may be totally dumb, but somebody told me it was worth about $100. If you got a can of oil that's never been opened, it's a round can of oil. And that's what we were using when I went to work at the Ford place in Dothan. And before that, when I worked at, now this is cool. When I was working at this gas station in Level Plains in 1975, they would have these little cans that were additive that you pour in there with your oil that was supposed to keep the lifter cleaned up and all that. I don't even remember who the brand name of it was. And whenever you would use your little pop top to get the, how you take the little, what they used to open beer and drink cans with is a little, makes a little triangular hole on top of the can. I don't remember. You pour all the stuff out, and then you'd hear something rattling around in that can. You know what was in that can? Money. You cut the top out of the can and have quarters, dimes, nickels.
Why is there money in it?
Because if the guys that every can had money in it, and the people that made it knew that if the mechanic knew he was going to get some Coke money out of that can, he would sell more of it. I ain't kidding you. And they would actually also put, that's kind of like putting towels in the boxes of Breeze, and glasses in the boxes of Does. They used to do that. It was like a little prize. But they also, the Justice Brothers was another outfit that had chemicals. And when you cut theirs out, there was a plastic washer-like thing in there that had the Justice Brothers logo on it. And when the Justice Brothers man came to refill your chemical, for every one of those you could hand him, he'd give you a quarter.
What?
Yeah, and some of these guys would have a bunch of those suckers. I mean, they just had they just kind of keep them in their toolbox. That's like money. JB, we call them JB plugs. And we used to, bargain with those things. I tell you what, I'll buy your lunch today if you give me a Coke and 2 JB plugs. So you get some money for me. You came back. Anyway, how did I get off on that? I don't remember. But anyway, number 5, Janie says she has to add a quart of oil to her vehicle every week. Name 2 places the oil might be going.
I get burnt and it might be leaking.
Well, let's see.
And you want like a rear main seal for an answer, or like he said?
Like an oil pan?
That's a
All right, let me ask you this: if he said it's being burnt, name one way that it can get burnt. Now, going out on the ground is obviously it's got seals leaking or something, a gasket or whatever.
valve stem seals and could be having blow by the piston.
Okay, how do I know valve stem seals are leaking? How can I tell?
I don't know.
Please.
I really don't.
I told you before, those little ice cream looking deposits like you see over there on them plugs, when you pull them out, it's got that puffy. I've got a really beautiful picture of it, and I took with my camera several times. You pull that plug out, and you see the bottom right. If you see that bottom left,
left, right?
bottom left, yeah, over there. Let me see if I can zoom in on that with my camera here, because we need to keep our viewing audience apprised of all this stuff. Okay, we're going to go right over here. And we're going to zoom in on that. We're going to zoom in on that right there. All right, you see them puffy ice cream deposits right there? See them puffy ice cream deposits? That comes from valve stem seals. And what happens is, whenever the valve stem seal leaks a little bit, it actually causes it, when it burns off, it leaves a little something every time. And over time, you're going to wind up with all of that stuff building up. So if you pull plugs out, and I'll tell you what those valve stem seals do too, and this is sort of getting into engine performance. you'll actually see when there's enough of those on all of the plugs, you'll pick up a surge. Won't be a dead skip, it'll be a surge. All right, now typically, huh? All right, if you've got a surge and you pull the if you've got EGR, and not all cars have EGR, but if you pull the vacuum hose off the EGR valve and that surge goes away, it typically means that EGR system is causing your surge, and maybe the EGR vacuum regulator's got a stopped up vent filter or something like that. There's several little things cause that. But if you get too much EGR, it'll cause it to surge. However, if you pull the EGR vacuum line and it stops surging, it may not necessarily be the EGR that's causing it, but you pull them plugs out and you see with a bunch of that stuff on there like I just showed you, that's the cause of it. And those valve stem seals, see, the surge is the symptom. The valve stem seals are the cause of that ultimately, but if you put a new set of plugs in it, it'll run smooth for a while, and then it goes back like it was over time. So the valve stem seals have got to be replaced. Now,
How hard is it to actually do it?
not too terribly hard, unless it's a Toyota or something that's got cam followers, and then you have to let me show you how to do it, because I don't know what to do. A cam follower is the bucket that's got the shim on top of it. Yeah, you pull the bucket off, and you got like on the head you had, and but let me. How you gonna get it back on here?
How you gonna get it back on there?
How you gonna get the spring back on? You got to take the spring off. Valve stem seal down there. You put that on, and all that. Oh, here's another way you can tell valve stem seals are leaking. You switch the car off. You leave it sit there for a while, and then what happens is oil drips down in the combustion chamber. You fire it up after it's cold, and it fills the whole parking lot up with smoke. You ever see them do that? But they don't smoke while they're running. Not usually. Got it? So that's a valve stem seal issue. Yeah, so, well, you may not see the smoke. You may see the smoke, you may not. When it get really bad, you see the smoke. You may not see any smoke, but you'll still have valve stem seal issues.
I don't think it is, because my plugs ain't never real
Yeah, so you probably don't have that, but you got a little surge on that. You know, it comes kind of a lean thing going on there or something?
Maybe rich.
Yeah. Or maybe your cam shaft is 1/2000 or something like that? Maybe. No, you don't do that. Huh?
That's the time of the jump.
Yeah, one tooth. Any piece of metal, anything rides down that timing belt and goes under that gear, it can make you go boom and jump one tooth. The next thing you know, you got late cam timing and you're doing stuff like that. Okay, so, one more thing. What can cause the engine to burn oil? Let's say that you know for an absolute fact that it's burning oil, but does that automatically mean you got piston ring problems? Tell me something that can make an engine burn oil that's not piston ring related.
Maybe somehow your oil is contaminating your fuel or something.
Well, I kind of see where you're going with that, but I don't know how you could get your oil to contaminate your fuel unless you somehow got your. No, I don't even know how you'd make that happen anyway. But you can make fuel contaminate the oil by running it rich all the time. Okay, what about the PCV system?
Sucking oil back through
The
it.
PCV system there's oil separators and everything in there, but the PCV system, if it's configured wrong or something like that, can pull oil right out of the crankcase and right on through that. And they always take extraordinary measures. I showed you on that Escort engine how they got an oil separator, so it can pull pressure out of the crankcase without pulling oil out of the crankcase. All right, what about? Now listen carefully. What about a blown intake gasket? Can that make it burn oil?
No, you can make it burn water though.
Yeah, it could, kind of, I
Well, it
guess.
depends on what it is.
Depends on where it's
On
going.
inside, I guess it could.
No, it's like
All right, let me ask you this.
All
All right, I'm asking you these questions right here because we got to burn this stuff in. We're coming up on the end of Engine Repair 1, and I'm going to make sure everybody understands this. And when I'm telling you this stuff, don't tune out or be watching your text on your phone or nothing. Listen, pull your PCV valve out, and you got to close your hose like you were talking about over there. On one valve cover, you got to close your hose. On the other side, you got a PCV valve. Okay, I'm going to pull both of those out, and I'm going to stop that up with my thumb so the crankcase is not getting any ventilation. What should I feel?
Suction.
Pressure. I'm talking PCV valves out of the way. It's out of the picture. I'm stopping up both of them. I ought to feel poof. It ought to feel pressure. Leave me some fender covers today. We've been totally without those for a while. What's up with that? What's in it?
You gotta let her know.
Huh?
If they're in with the rags, I just got the rags on it or let it.
Oh, well. Okay. We need like 4 fender covers today.
If I got 4, I'll give you 4.
Now, I got to tell them about that. There shall not be any past due balance on that at all. I don't know why there would be. That's strange. Very weird. Yeah, throw me some fender covers. I was trying to. I sent you to get a fender cover yesterday, didn't I? What happened?
There wasn't one.
There wasn't. So we were just lifting them up.
Match right.
Oh no, Todd is giving me a hard time every time he comes in. All right. See you next
Gotta
time.
get it back sometime.
You got it. All right. So, but anyway, we got to razz the unit first, guys. All right. Now then, we got let me see here. Oh, what I was talking about. This is what we used to do. We got one that's running crappy or something like that, or it's using oil, and we don't want to go just throw piston rings at it. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to troubleshoot. Well, if we cap off both sides of that valve cover where the PCV valve and the closure was, and we feel suction, and it's a V6 like you got or a V8 or something like that. If we feel suction there, what do we know?
Suction?
Yeah, we're feeling a suction there. This thing is building suction in the crankcase. The intake manifold gasket has moved or is busted or something on the bottom side, and it's pulling a vacuum on the crankcase. And what's it also pulling out of there? The engine oil. Got it? Now then, are we clear on that? An intake gasket, a lower intake gasket can slip and cause it to burn oil. And you can find that by isolating the crankcase from the PCV system so that there's nowhere it can breathe. And you better not feel any suction. If you feel suction, end of story, you've got an intake gasket that has slipped, or vacuum getting into the crankcase somehow. The most likely place is the intake gasket slip. That is far more common than most people realize. But you know what happens? Let's say you decided you're going to throw rings at it. What are you going to do whenever you're pulling it apart? You're going to change the intake gasket anyway, because you're going to pull that because the intake's bolted to what? The heads.
So then you're going to think it was the piston rings.
Yeah, nobody's the wiser. But I mean, think about that. And we've also had. I've actually seen a lot of these 3.1s, like what's in that Pontiac we got out there, that have a bunch of milky-looking oil in them. And I've seen reputable shops that I trust, and for some reason I don't know why they would do this, would say that it needs an engine, when all it had was a blown intake gasket getting water and oil. And you can actually pull the intake and see where it was blown.
Like the peanut butter sludge.
Yeah, it's like whatever it's like milky looking stuff that where the water's mixed with the oil. It looks similar to what Chelsea was getting out of that 2002 Saturn, but at the same time it's in the crankcase, not in the cooling system.
That's what I had happen to mine.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll miss that. You'll miss that until you notice the engine's running really bad, and it'll make the engine run for you. All right, let's go down here.
Our block got filled with it.
Yep. Okay, so two possible ways the thing can go. On number 5, you're going to know into the combustion chamber, out on the ground is two of the most obvious ones you can find if you're going to put oil in it. The engine's coolant system has two primary jobs. What are they?
Cooling and heating the cab.
Wow. It's actually to keep it from running too cold and to keep it from running too hot. Now, what happens if the engine runs too cold? It wears out really fast, and it also sledges up. You don't want it running too cold. Remember what I told you? You make a gallon of water for every gallon of gas you burn?
But it does help heat the cab, though, right?
Huh? Yes, it does, but that's part of your... You're basically, we're focusing on the engine, and you're getting into HVAC, which is, our day one of the week, whatever. But you're smart as far as, the heat does come from there. But that's basically that.
What's number 7 saying?
Huh?
Number 7, it says on the back left edge, true or false.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if it was just a statement it wanted us to...
100% ethylene glycol will not cool better than 50-50 mixed with water. Ethylene glycol is formulated to act with water, not in place of it.
True.
What's the lowest temperatures that you've ever personally experienced?
Lowest?
Yeah. Coldest you've ever seen it?
170, 160.
No, I mean the coldest outside temperature.
Oh,
What's the coldest you've seen?
like 18, 19 degrees.
Yeah, what about you? You been somewhere where it was cold, or have you been a subtropics girl all your life? What about you, Archie? I bet it gets really cold down in Daphne, though.
40 below.
Huh?
40 below.
40 below. What about you?
Maine.
40 below?
That was in Maine. I flew in from Kuwait in December, and we got off that airplane. We went outside to smoke, so we hadn't been able to smoke for hours and hours, and it was like 40 below out there.
Now, my dad said when he was in Korea, He said it was 40, 50 below zero, and he says that when it warmed up to 10 below, all the GIs were out there with their T-shirts. Man, it's warm out here. And they got climatized to the 40, 50 below zero, and 10 below felt warm. But the thing about it was, I was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and we got snowed in up there. Me and 3 other guys went up there skiing. And I tried that one time, and I'll never try it again because I don't want to break a leg.
Oh, skiing?
That hurts.
Snow skiing, golly. But I mean, I was coming down that hill 70 miles an hour thinking, man, it's got to be harder than this. And all of a sudden, anyway, the point is, it was 17 below zero. And we were driving a 73 LTD that was nearly new at the time. And it had plenty of antifreeze in the radiator. And when I pulled the radiator cap off to look in there that morning when it was so freezing cold, it looked like a snow cone. And it had antifreeze in it. It had lots of antifreeze in it. But see, the ice was in little tiny crystal. Now, what happens, have you ever seen somebody, and you'll see this, you start paying attention, when it gets cold this winter, you know what I mean? And it's going to get cold this winter, in spite of what these climate change yo-yos are trying to tell us. It's going to get cold this winter. You know what I mean? You're going to see people beside the road with their hood up and steam boiling out because their car overheated. Why?
Because the block road.
No. I mean, that's a possibility, but more often...
Popped out a freeze plug.
No popped out freeze plugs. Now, the freeze plugs aren't really there to pop out, but sometimes they do. You know, it's not really... They call it an expansion plug. What happens is they don't have enough antifreeze in there,
Bust the radiator.
and it's flowing through these little tiny flues in the radiator, and there's a lot of ice-cold wind coming through there, and it clogs up those flues with ice. And now, all of a sudden, you got no cooling. Because, you know, the radiator is completely clogged with ice, and the car gets hot. So the car can get hot because it's too cold if you don't have antifreeze in there. Now, what happens if you put straight antifreeze in it?
Gonna gel it?
And yeah, it gels up at about 8 below. And when it gels up, it don't flow. And when it doesn't flow, it can cook something. Yes, ma'am?
I was saying it blows up.
Yeah. Well, it does that.
I thought it
Okay.
didn't cool as good as water.
Yeah. Okay. It will not cool better than 50-50 ethylene glycol. It's formulated to act with water, not in place of it. Right. All right, you got that? Okay, now number 8. I got to go to my next page here. I'm sorry. What purpose does the thermostat serve, and how does it work?
Put more coolant into the engine when it hits a certain temperature.
Actually, it keeps coolant from circulating through the radiator till the engine's warm, and it uses a temperature-driven wax pellet to open spring-loaded, normally closed valve.
That's too much right.
I don't even have no more space to write.
There's room on there to write it down, so write all of it down. And do it now. Or get the question wrong. Okay. Got that? Okay. Now then. Basically, no coolant circulates through the radiator. Now there is a bypass hose that bypasses the thermostat. Right? So that there is some coolant flowing, but where's it going? It's basically just circulating through the engine. And where is the first place warm water goes before it goes anywhere else? The heater core. We want to get heat just as quick as we can, don't we? Now, you remember that heater core? I mean, that Jaguar that I was working on in here? We've actually looked at that again, Chelsea. Do you know where that fuse was? Right over there by the relay. The fuse. And that is absolutely crazy. That's some of the craziest thing I've ever seen. All right. Now then, let me ask you this. What system is illustrated here? That's the next question.
Fuel system?
She's very good. The fuel system. Give that girl a cigar.
I got one outside of shit.
How do we know that's a fuel system? Tell me why you can identify that as a fuel system.
Shows the tank and
Fuel
the line.
line, the gas tank.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. Now, what is this yellow component here?
Yellow
That's
component.
fuel pressure regulator.
Is yours yellow?
No.
Oh, yours is a colored component. Mine's yellow on my original copy. I'm sorry.
Fuel pressure regulator.
Fuel pressure regulator. Now, don't get that crossed up with the EGR valve.
I did.
Don't ever do that.
I thought it was some kind of vacuum thing at first.
Well, it does have a vacuum line going to it.
Does?
Yeah, there's a vacuum line going to it. Okay, now we're going to go number 11. An octane rating simply refers to the volatility of that particular blend of gasoline. It has no relationship to power output. True or false?
I know that's supposed to be true or something, but that's hogwash because octane refers to a specific hydrocarbon, which I think is C8H18. It's right.
I'm not laughing at you. It just tickles me how it comes across with this encyclopedic knowledge. But basically, I will tell you, in the real world, people that drive cars that are supposed to have 93 octane will tell you that their car runs a lot better on 93 octane as far as power than it does without it. Now, I don't know if that's a placebo effect or whatever, but I'm going to tell you something else about fuel and fuel economy. You could take some gizmo. I don't care. Hey, JT. You could take some gizmo. I don't really care what it is. I don't care what it is. Whatever that gizmo may be, you can take that gizmo and you can put it on the car. Let's say it's a little box and you're hooking it down in there so you'll have a flashing lights on it or something. And all it is got some blinking LEDs in it, and his lights are flashing. You say, now I'm going to hook this over here, and I'm going to pull a wire from this, and I'm going to wrap it around your fuel line. Okay? Now, this thing is supposed to improve gas mileage, and I want you to test it for me. It won't hurt the car. And did you know, and you should try this. I'm not kidding. Let's build a little box, put it on here, and say, let me know what this does for your gas mileage. And you know what they do? They will come back and they will tell you, I got 3 more miles to the gallon while I had that thing on my car. This is no joke. It happens. I mean, it's a placebo effect. They'll sell these things that's got magnets that you can tie wrap around the gas line, and they'll say that causes the gasoline molecules to line up and polarize so that you'll get better gas mileage. And people will put that on their fuel lines. One of the guys that worked here was telling me, I get 3 more miles to the gallon when I put those magnets on my, and then you believe that? Well, see, somebody that doesn't really understand how all this kind of stuff works will just swear they got better gas mileage. Now, you know about the HHO generators. You know how you do those, right? HHO generators.
Electrolysis and a bunch of metal plates.
You put baking soda in water. You put positive and negative metal plates that aren't touching each other so that the electricity has to flow through the water. And it causes HHO gas to be boil up out of the water, and then you pull that HHO gas into your engine, and it's supposed to provide additional fuel so that you get better fuel economy. Well, I built one of those things, and it ain't hard to build one, and I put it on my Jeep Cherokee, and my Jeep Cherokee, as I routinely drive back and forth between here and Knopf, would get like 20, 21 miles to the gallon. When I had that darn thing on there, it would get 18, 17. I lost 2 or 3 miles to the gallon off that thing.
I think the trick to those things and systems would be to regulate the proper liters per minute, and then to trim back your own fuel. That way it would,
Well, one way or another. All right, let's go on down here. Now, number 11, according to the answer key, is true. There are people like Tyler Monroe. That car he drives is supposed to use 93 octane. He swears up and down if he uses anything else that won't hardly pull out of the
It's
track.
foolish.
I know, but whatever. Anyway, but I mean, people will tell you that. They'll tell you that it runs better with premium gas, and they just like it better and all that. Okay, number 12. What are 3 primary differences between gasoline and diesel engines?
the fuel,
That's one of them.
compression in the cylinders,
Okay, the
Spark plug.
ignition. I mean,
gasoline engines have spark plugs. All right. Here's another one. They don't have throttle plates to regulate the air. Now, there's a caveat to that. Duramax and some of your Power Strokes have got a throttle plate, but it is not to control engine speed. You control engine speed and power on a diesel by changing the amount of fuel you squirt. Most of them just got a wide open throat.
I had heard that you couldn't carburate a diesel.
No, you can't.
Why is that?
Well, you got to have really high pressure atomizing that fuel going into those combustion chambers. The pressure, the compression on a diesel is like 400 or 500 pounds, basically. And so, yeah, if they could carburate a diesel, they would, right? They spray fuel directly into the combustion chamber, more or less. They're equipped with glow plugs in each cylinder, and that heats the combustion chambers during cold starts. Because when you squeeze that air, you're going to get 2 degrees Fahrenheit for every pound of compression. If I'm squeezing that air 500 pounds, I'm getting 1,000 degrees. If it's 1,000 degrees, it's going to light off. If the engine is really cold, it'll absorb the heat out of that air you're squeezing, so you have to have glow plugs to heat things up so that it'll bust off and start. Now, let me hit you with this. I found an old magazine. I wish I'd scanned that page of a Nissan Sentra, and if I'm not mistaken, it was like a '78 model Nissan Sentra. On this magazine ad, it was in some Life magazine or something like that. Big picture of this Nissan Sentra sitting here, and they had a gas mileage figure posted with this Nissan Sentra. It was an ad for Nissan Sentra. Okay, can anybody give me any idea what kind of gas mileage the Nissan people said the Sentra would get in 1978?
78, probably about 25 to 30.
17 to 20.
What do you think?
That's post the.
I'm not kidding you. I'm not lying about this, and I wish I'd have scanned that thing. 58 miles to the gallon is what they were saying that little Sentra would get, and it had a carburetor on it.
How big?
Now, why are we getting so excited out of about 40 miles to the gallon? If Nissan could build a Sentra in 1978, it would get 58 mpg. And they wouldn't have published it in something like Life Mag. It was some big magazine that old magazine she had. Because in that same magazine, if I remember right, there was I had Tom Selleck advertising some kind of cigarettes or something. But
I'm
anyway,
getting excited because we had
58 miles to the gallon. This Taurus that I'm driving, it's out here. You know, the average fuel economy numbers that it gives you on the dash and all, and that, you know, it figures that electronically by looking at pulse width and how far you're driving, and it's an accurate thing. You know, what do you think that Taurus gets on the way to Enterprise, from Enterprise this morning?
25.
32. See what I'm saying? I mean, so you can get good gas mileage just use regular fuel injection if you want to. I'm not talking against hybrids necessarily, because hybrids are a good thing. Hybrids aren't a bad thing, you know. Yeah. Well, it'll take you a long time to recover the extra money you spent on them. Now, if they could get the price down on hybrids where they were equal to a regular car, there'd be a lot more people driving them. But if they're going to spend $40,000-$50,000 for a hybrid and is going to have to drive it 10 years and put 100,000 miles on it before they even break even.
I think that's good. Well, they cleared the distribution that was supposed to be a hybrid. They said it was like 25,000.
Have you priced one?
It was in a magazine. They had like they had like a Evo or something. And it was a Ford Fusion, and it showed like non-hybrid. It said it was a hybrid.
Yeah.
And the non-hybrid for 2012 was like, or maybe 2011, it was like 22.5, and the hybrid was like maybe, I don't know, it was 25. It was like maybe 28.
I'd be looking on the sticker on that.
Something like 30,000.
You know how much a Chevy Volt costs? 42.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
All right, now look at this. What about number 13? What does the distributor do?
Distributes power.
Spark plug timing.
Distributes spark.
It sorts out the spark, and it usually houses a speeder position sensor. Got that? Okay. In a distributorless ignition engine, how often does a spark plug fire during a 4-stroke cycle of a single cylinder?
3 times.
Well, you've heard me say, like on that, and that's a good question. But on this, now that is really cool. He's got a good point. This Escort, probably yours, is going to pop 3 times when it's idling every time it fires. But how often does the spark plug fire during the 4-stroke cycle?
Once.
No, not on a distributorless ignition. It's got one coil for each 2 cylinders, right? It's got to go like that.
Not
And
necessarily.
they fire in the exhaust stroke too.
Yeah, I mean that's one that
So-
shares.
One cold.
Companion cylinders, yeah. But is yours a coil on plug?
No,
It's got a coil
it's got a
pack.
coil and
He's got a coil pack.
it's got a coil pack, and then it's got wires going to it.
Yeah, so if it's got a coil pack over there, then you're going to be popping both them plugs at the same time. Every time that piston hits the top, they're popping. But most of the juice goes over where the gas is. Okay, you got that?
So
We'll talk more about that next semester when we're in engine.
So 2 or
2 times.